All right, I want to segue now from the death of print to the carbon tax, and for that, of course, we need George Brandis. Come in, George Brandis.
What is the government's message to the some 1,900 Fairfax media employees whose jobs have been destroyed by its carbon tax?
I think people who are worried about what is happening in their employment at Fairfax are not going to take too kindly to you rocking up into the Senate chamber and asking ridiculous questions in an attempt to link it to your carbon scare campaign.
Now, Dennis, politicians say silly things, but how would that rate on that scale?
Pretty well up there, I think. We were talking the other day about the Matt Price moment. I think that might sort of be a late entry for the year.
But it shouldn't do him any harm, because, look, Tim Flannery said the dams in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney would never fill again.
Tim Flannery.
And
This
Tim
guy's
Flannery
a politician.
got promoted by the government as chairman of the Climate Commission.
This guy's a politician. Doesn't it cheapen the currency if you make those sorts of statements when everybody knows?
As an employee of Fairfax, who's received several internal briefings over the last few years about the challenges facing us, be it the decline of classified ads, or no one's actually mentioned the carbon tax.
Well, I mean, it's pure hyperbole, but there's a lot of it around. That's all I say. He's not the only one.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that I work for News Limited, and we're apparently a carbon neutral company. So I'm not sure that we're contributing to any of this.
Well, it was. Is there evidence, though, that the Tony Abbott rhetoric that has been around now for a year or two on this is starting to catch up with him? This is what Anthony Albanese contributed in the Parliament.
On the 27th of April last year, the Leader of the Opposition said this: Whyalla will be wiped off the map. He went on to say, Whyalla risks becoming a ghost town, an economic wasteland if this carbon tax goes ahead. It's like a scene from Mad Max. I mean, the Special Minister of State, Gary Gray, will be over in Whyalla. He's a Whyalla local. He'll be going to visit his mum on the 30th of June to check that everything's still OK when 1 July comes through. Now we see he's running from his over-the-top comments faster than he ran from the Parliament.
Having said that, I think there's probably a lot of perceptions already fairly well embedded in people's minds about it.
Yeah, look, Labor's last-ditch sort of plan, if you like, is to expose Abbott on July 1 onwards, because Abbott's gone out very strongly and probably overstated things, in some cases. That Whyalla claim, he was echoing the sentiments of Wayne Hanson, who was the State Secretary of the AWU, and who made a similar, he said Whyalla would be a ghost town, and Abbott went straight to Whyalla and leapt on these comments to reinforce them. Now, Abbott has shifted his rhetoric in recent weeks. He's gone from, it's no longer going to be a cobra strike, it's going to be a python squeeze, because he knows the world won't end on probably July 1, as he's intimated, if you like, and Labor's not going to let him out of that. So their great hope is to hold this guy up on July 1 onward and say, well, people are still breathing and the sun's still coming up.
Yeah, but they have got some incredible perceptions to overcome. The Climate Institute, which is pro-carbon pricing, they released some polling just in the last few days, and the most alarming number out of that was some 70% of people who earn under $40,000 a year, these are the people who are being overcompensated for the impact of carbon pricing, think they will be worse off under the carbon tax. That's a terrible figure for the government, and that just shows the job they've got, regardless of what Tony Abbott says.
But this was always, it always looked like that the problems the government were having were in the outer areas outside of the cities and in the outer suburbs, and that's showing up again there.